Great to visit with the students from UMSL and university leaders during lunch. Chancellor Soblik, whenever you get ready, we'll start our meeting. So we'll turn it over to you whenever you guys are ready.
Thank you, Chair Chapman. So this fall, the University of Missouri St. Louis welcomed 15,189 students across all undergraduate, graduate, professional, and advanced placement programs. While overall our enrollment is down, know that recruitment and retention remain our top priority. There is a lot of activity underway to turn enrollment around so that we can continue to welcome, educate, and graduate students and transform lives. Despite the global pandemic, our university continued to advance as the region's premier public research university and as a premier public national university. The 2022 U.S. News and World Report rankings confirm what we already know, that UMSL is on the rise. We again are included in the Tier 1 National University category and rose an unprecedented 42 spots in the overall national rankings over the past 2 years. And we now rank number 118 among all public universities. And these rankings represent our highest rankings ever achieved. And in fact, we also broke last year's record to earn an highest ever total score on the 17 measures U.S. News and Forms uses to inform its rankings. Now, this growth is not by accident. It is because of the steadfast efforts of our faculty and staff to meet the needs of our students. And I also want to credit President Choi for prioritizing the data collection that informs our success parameters. And I have no doubt that as we continue to focus our collective work on advancing our students, faculty and student, and embrace an emphasis on outcomes, that UMSL will soon be a top 100 national public university. And as Chair Chapman stated in his report, we are also again ranked in the top 100 performers for social mobility, moving students with more financial need to the next economic level, one of only 2 Missouri institutions on that list. More times than not, you see UMSL's retention and graduation rates compared to universities with different missions, different resources, or different student demographics. I share this comparison with you today to let you know that among our peer urban public universities, the University of Missouri St. Louis leads in first-year retention and 6-year graduation rates. This is not only true of our first-time freshmen, but also our transfer population. If there's one paramount lesson that the pandemic has taught us, it's that UMSL Tritons are resilient. And I would love to talk and wax rhapsodic about these wonderful students, but I am going to make a timeline deadline. So this past year, we did welcome more than 3,000 of our graduates to the ranks of UMSL alumni. And their stories are as diverse as they are driven to make a positive change not only in their lives, but also the lives of their families. Successful students turn into successful alumni. And since our founding in 1963, UMSL has graduated more than 120,000 degrees to over 108,000 individuals. And no institution does more to educate and graduate students from Missouri who stay in Missouri. UMSL graduates dominate the regional workforce, making up the single largest alumni base in the region. And there are many ways to measure success, but to me, it is our alumni who are our greatest success. And it's a privilege, really, as Chancellor, to see this success each and every day as we go out and about in the community. For example, James Young on the bottom is a musical theater teacher in Ferguson Florissant School District and the UMSL Teacher of the Year Award for this year. And Darian Cockrell is the Missouri, not UMSL Teacher of the Year, Missouri Teacher of the Year. Darian Cockrell was Missouri Teacher of the Year last year. And in fact, the last 5 Teachers of the Year from Missouri are UMSL graduates. For UMSL to continue to make an impact here in the region and beyond, we must focus on strategic enrollment growth. Enrollment, which includes recruitment and retention, is our collective responsibility. And I'm pleased that we have begun implementation of the university's first ever strategic enrollment plan this year with the support of the UM system and Dr. Choi, and that we have welcomed Reggie Hill to UMSL as our first Associate Vice Chancellor for Strategic Enrollment to spearhead our path forward. The strategic enrollment plan includes targeted investments in many areas of recruitment and retention, but there are many ways in which we are investing in our future success. For example, we have invested in new academic programs that are in demand that will build the workforce of the future in emerging areas. Since 2018, we have launched 12 new degree programs in areas such as cybersecurity, entrepreneurship, supply chain analytics, and child advocacy studies. We will also soon seek approval from the state to launch a new master's degree in financial technology. And I want to thank many of our faculty, staff, and administrators, and of course our board of curators who work diligently to bring these programs to bear for our current and future students. I talked a lot about our infrastructure and facilities earlier this morning, but I do want to state that we have completed phase 1 of our College of Nursing simulation lab with $1.5 million of donor funds, as well as $1.5 million of UMSL's funding. And I'm proud to share that the students are already benefiting from these new simulation labs, and we recently welcomed Governor Mike Parson to UMSL to join us on a progress tour. And once completed, this will allow us to grow the number of pre-licensure BSN graduates by 20% annually. We are continuing our connection or our commitment to providing an accessible education for students across the state. As you may know, nearly half of all UMSL students, undergraduate students, are Pell Grant eligible, and many of our students have excessive financial need as defined by their expected family contribution. This financial need inhibits the ability of many of our students to earn a college degree. So to support those students and their families, UMSL has introduced a full need tuition financial assistance program for new undergraduate students in Missouri and the Metro St. Louis area beginning spring of 2022. And under this program, UMSL will significantly increase access to qualified students with financial needs. In addition to providing a world-class education, UMSL has many community-focused strengths. Among those are meaningful economic and community engagement programs. For example, we are driving the efforts of Greater St. Louis, Inc. to create jobs and expand inclusive prosperity through the St. Louis Anchor Action Network. Here, UMSL and Edward Jones are co-leading and bringing together the region's largest institutions and now corporations to focus on building growth in the region. This includes an intentional focus on hiring locally, purchasing locally, and investing locally so that we strategically leverage our organizations to invest back into our region and our people. UMSL continues to solidify its strong affiliation with the new $1.7 billion National Geospatial Intelligence Agency campus in North St. Louis. Last month, with more than 3,000 in attendance at the GeoInt Symposium, the largest annual gathering of the global geospatial industry, I signed an educational partnership agreement with NGA Director Vice Admiral Robert Sharp. This is one of only 4 such EPAs with the NGA across the country. The agreement establishes a partnership to create a geospatial talent pipeline through the development of academic courses and programs in STEM that provide the skills needed for careers in geospatial intelligence. UMSL already is a part of a cooperative research and development agreement with the NGA, which optimizes our shared resources, technical expertise, and intellectual property to speed up the commercialization of federally developed technology. UMSL is the only institution in the country with both EPA and CRADA agreements with the NGA. This collaboration elevates our university's position in the geospatial ecosystem and is the centerpiece of UMSL's Geospatial Collaborative, which we launched last year. I'll just talk briefly about St. Louis Public Radio. We have hired our new CEO of St. Louis Public Radio, Tina Pamantuan, and she brings more than 20 years of experience working in public media as a journalist. And this year, we are also honored to celebrate the 175th anniversary of the St. Louis Mercantile Library, which joined our university in 1996 to expand its reach and give greater access to its collection for residents of our region. The Mercantile is the oldest library west of the Mississippi and the oldest cultural institution in St. Louis. Since it opened its doors in 1846, its collection has been a multifaceted reflection of the history of St. Louis and the region, and it is a true cultural treasure located right here on the UMSL campus. UMSL also takes pride in being one of the most culturally and ethnically diverse universities in the state of Missouri. And members of our campus community are continually looking for new ways they can cultivate an even more inclusive environment where everyone can feel valued and thrive. In September, Insight into Diversity magazine recognized that our ongoing work when naming UMSL as its recipient of its prestigious 2021 Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award, a national honor recognizing U.S. colleges and universities that demonstrate an outstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion. This marks the second year in a row and fifth time overall that UMSL has received this honor, the most of any university in Missouri. This year, UMSL was again recognized by Military Times as the best for vets, ranked #1 in Missouri, and in the top 50 nationally for the 7th consecutive year. This is due to our excellent Veterans Center and the infrastructure we have in place to support our veterans and military families. And I hope you visited with Josh previously during lunch. So, as I close, know that UMSL is on the rise. We are a Tier 1 national university that boasts tremendous outcomes for our students, and we are well on our way to being a top 100 public university, as well as the premier urban public university in the country. When our students succeed, so too does our region and Missouri. UMSL alumni make up the greatest contributions of graduates that live, work, and lead in the St. Louis region and beyond, and their collective reach extends throughout the state, nation, and world. We are steadily investing across the university in new degree programs, facilities, and infrastructure, and working to make access to a world-class UMSL education accessible and affordable to all. We are growing community-focused efforts with research and programming embedded in our communities to address critical regional and statewide needs. Finally, we are securing our place as the state's most diverse, inclusive, and transformative university serving students of all backgrounds, circumstances, and abilities. There's a lot to be proud of here at UMSL, and that is what makes this such an exciting time. We are leaning into our strengths and continuing to transform lives. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Chancellor Sobolik. It's great to hear about the wonderful things going on at UMSL. Good work.
Thank you.
Any questions for the Chancellor?
I would like to say that as a new curator, and when we have these regular meetings, we get to visit the campus the day before to do our orientation to find out about the history of that particular campus and the plans they have. Your leadership team that we visited with yesterday, the tour that we got was great to understand your campus and your plans. And then your advisory council, all UMSL grads was quite a distinguished group. So I really enjoyed the orientation, and it seems like that you are on the rise. And I just wanted to mention that. The orientation was great. Thank you very much for your time and for your team's time.
Thank you, Curator Holloway. We enjoyed that visit yesterday.
All right, any further questions for Kristen?
Just want to add something to what Keith said. As a former member of the UMSL Chancellor's Council, it still is a very important communication source between the business community and the university, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and that's the group that Curator Holloway was talking about.
Right.
He got the privilege of meeting with that group yesterday and vice versa.
And it really includes the key leaders, many of the key business leaders in the St. Louis community.
That's true. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Okay, I'm now pleased to turn the podium over to Chancellor Sobolik and Dengani for our continued strategic theme discussion regarding achieving research excellence. This is part 2 of this discussion, as we heard from Chancellors Agrawal and President Choi in September. The floor is yours.
Thank you for this time. I was going to make a joke about keeping people from lunch, but obviously we're a little bit behind. So I did do some cutting, but I am exceedingly proud of the research that we do. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity that allows me to focus on the ways in which UMSL, the university, is excelling in the implementation of its research mission and how that research impacts the communities we serve. Whew. The number of tenured and tenure-track faculty has declined on our campus over the past 6 years. But as you see, the next 3 slides, that has not deterred us from seeking and receiving external funding. We have written proposals to various funding sources averaging about $95 million a year since fiscal year 16. And as you can see, our proposal requests are up 9% over the past 6 years and an amazing 30% increase during fiscal year 21. And over the past 6 years, UMSL researchers have received an average of nearly $29 million in external grants and contracts from all sources. Awards are up 20% from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 21. Our research reports to the board typically focus on federal expenditures. Therefore, I have added more context to this slide. First, it shows a 50% increase in expenditures from all sources, those in blue. And when you just look at expenditures from federal funding agencies, those in orange, those are up 35%. We're proud of both numbers, but wanted to share them with you because they give you a better picture of our UMSL research and outreach enterprise. While federal funding is an important barometer of success, it does not capture the whole University of Missouri-St. Louis story. There's just so much missed when you focus too narrowly. So for instance, on this slide, you see that the University of Missouri-St. Louis has many non-federal funding partners who value the research and programs our faculty and students conduct and oversee every year in our community and our state. A majority of our external funding, in fact, comes from these varied non-federal funding partners because they understand that UMSL researchers address issues affecting our region and that our finding and solutions can be shared and replicated in similar communities throughout Missouri and the nation. For example, UMSL has a world-class college of education that leverages its research and grant work to support not only K-12 school districts throughout the region, but also students enrolled in college right here at UMSL and beyond. For example, Desley endowed Professor Jerome Morris has secured a $1 million grant from the Spencer Foundation to study and enhance educational success in the Ferguson, Florissant, Jennings, and St. Louis school districts. A $5.1 million federal and state grant is allowing UMSL to partner with 40 schools in the St. Louis region to provide year-round, evidence-based literacy strategies for K through 12 educators, and also develop literacy instructional resources that will be available in modules hosted on the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website. UMSL also received a $2.1 million grant to expand our award-winning Succeed program, which is designed as a post-secondary program to teach students with intellectual and developmental disabilities independent living, academic, and job skills as they earn a Chancellor's certificate or matriculate into a degree program. UMSL is the state's leader in providing not only research in the areas of mental health, but also in developing innovative research that addresses a broad array of needs from brain health and trauma to addiction and suicide. Rob Paul is director of the Missouri Institute for Mental Health and has received continuous funding from the National Institutes of Health since 1997, totaling over $15 million for his research in areas such as cognitive impairment and the impact of treatment on brain integrity and early-stage HIV. Associate Professor Rachel Winograd has been leading the Missouri Opioid State Targeted Response Projects since 2017, first launched by the Missouri Department of Mental Health and after receiving a $20 million federal grant to help curb the rising numbers of opioid overdoses and deaths in the state. And Children's Advocacy Services of Greater St. Louis, part of UMSL, and directed by Jerry Dunn here, number 3, recognized by President Choi in his earlier report, is receiving about $1 million annually for the next 5 years to fund projects to increase treatment opportunities for children who have experienced a traumatic event and to increase the number of trauma-informed trainers in Missouri. UMSL's Criminology and Criminal Justice program is consistently named among the top programs in the country by U.S. News and World Reports, and its faculty is leading research and scholarly contributions related to reforming the justice system. I wanted to highlight Beth Hubner in our Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice, who is one of this year's recipients of the President's Award for Intercampus Collaboration and recognized by President Choi in his earlier report. She and her colleagues at MU and UMKC received a $200,000 grant from the Urban Institute to better understand and improve the prison environment in the state. This work is centered at Moberly Correctional Facility. And Dr. Hubner individually has garnered millions of dollars in funding since joining UMSL. The latest award is $1.3 million from the MacArthur Foundation that will fund efforts to rethink the local criminal justice system, safely reduce St. Louis County's jail population, and eliminate inequities. The University of Missouri St. Louis is internationally known for its research and programs in conservation biology affecting our environment and the way in which we live. For example, Sam Wang received a $1.2 million NIH award to study the strength of our circadian rhythms. Sam is using plants to better understand the regulatory mechanisms for the circadian clock and the interactions it has with the metabolism. And Assistant Professor Lon Chubas recently won a prestigious National Science Foundation Career Award to study how bacteria have adapted to hostile environments. I go back to the 6-year expenditure slide that I showed you previously, illustrating UMSL's overall research funding in blue compared to our federal funding in orange. Typically, as today, only the federal funding is displayed during Board of Curators meetings, mainly because this is important for AAU rankings. Now, UMSL is not an AAU institution, but is very engaged in our community and receives funding from a wide variety of resources. So in UMSL's case, by just reporting federal funding, This underrepresents our actual support for research activities by 3.5 times. As a UM system, we want to make sure we are supporting and reaching all of Missouri. The research that we do here at UMSL is very focused on our community, on Missourians, and you just saw some of the examples of that type of research. My ask is that in future research reports at Board of Curators meetings, that all of our research funding is counted so that our true impact, our impact on Missouri, can be seen, acknowledged, and celebrated. Now, I'm proud of the growth in funding and project examples that I've been able to share with you today. It represents a lot of hard work by our faculty and students, as well as institutional support and planning. We have implemented numerous strategies and made significant investments to enhance our research impact, including establishing programs to support new faculty and to reinvigorate efforts of our longer-term faculty. Both efforts are yielding significant results. The University of Missouri St. Louis is well-positioned for additional external funding, particularly in areas that align with campus strengths, such as cybersecurity, healthcare, particularly mental health, ecology, criminal and social justice, and workforce development. This is especially true with increased investments nationally in research, addressing social equity, workforce development, and inclusive prosperity. Development of the new National Geospatial Intelligence Agency complex in St. Louis also creates new avenues for partnerships and for increased funding support. So in closing, thank you for letting me share some insights into our external research activities and operations. Research is a pillar of our strategic plan and commitment to our students and the communities we serve. It enhances the education of our students receive at the university, and our research is growing. It is rooted in community issues and needs, and is fundamental to our engagement mission and duty to transform lives. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Chancellor Soblik. It's a great report. Any questions? All right. Chancellor Degani?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I have a quick report to make before I give you a helicopter view of our research. Remington mentioned this morning that one of our aerospace engineering students was a member of 15 cohort that was nominated for the best Air Force ROTC cadets. Well, I just heard that he won the top position. He's the best cadet in all of the United States, and we are celebrating his achievement. The guy is amazing. You know, he's got a 4.0 in aerospace engineering. He does an enormous amount of community work. I'm just nervous to meet him. You know, to tell you the truth, I want to see what he eats for breakfast. I'm going to try to get to know this guy. So I thought, Remington, thank you for teeing that off, but that's the great news I just heard. I also want to thank this body for your support for all of our initiatives. I do want to mention that we have a comprehensive strategic approach to the campus of the future. I've said often that I'm not worried about COVID in 2 years and 5 years and so on. The concern is, what will this wonderful campus look like in 50 years and 70 years and so on. You know, we just celebrated our Cisco centennial anniversary, and it behooves us to plan accordingly. So everything that you heard this morning, including the manufacturing initiative that we have, which I believe is probably the most important initiative for our campus, is a part of that comprehensive approach. I do want you to know that we are holding manufacturing proposals out of the fear of if they get funded, we will have to have a space to actually execute our projects. But with that, let me mention also that, as you know, we have established a sense of direction for our campus. We call it our North Star, And the 4 elements of it are recruiting, retention, ranking, and research. So research is a critical element of our strategic directions. So I'm going to talk about research, innovation, and entrepreneurship ecosystem that we have established at the campus, where we are now, and the highlights of some of our ongoing activities, and a sense of future direction, challenges and actions that we have in place, and then a vision, a strategy, and execution priority as a final slide. So this is really to capture the ecosystem for our research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. You notice the first few blocks are really focused on research, but after the common mandate to us, where he wanted us to have economic impact, we added the final 2 blocks when we call it incubation and economic development. But all of these elements require interaction not only with federal funding organizations and really state and local governments, but also, in our case, industry. We are an institute of technology. We have a very focused strategy, and therefore working with corporations and companies and industries and manufacturers is really in the mainstream of all of our strategies going forward. So you can see at the very beginning of this chart, we have need recognition and critical challenges. So every research element that I present to you is really solution-inspired research rather than hypothesis-driven research. So we do a lot of governmental funding, NSF, NIH, DOD, DARPA, DITRA, all of that. But at the same time, a huge chunk of our research is industry-focused, as I will show you. So some basics, here's our proposals submitted and funded. Now, this is a critical slide. We have a team formed that's called Award Capture Team. And we review our proposals through a panel process as if it is being reviewed by the funding organization. So we do a lot of self-filtering of the proposals that we submit. As a result, you see the remarkable rate of success of the proposals that we submit. And as we speak here, panels are reviewing the new set of Young Investigator Award proposals that are going out. So we do a lot of self-monitoring, self-filtering of our proposals. There is a lot of mentorship of our young faculty members. So I think this you won't see this rate of success of proposals that are submitted in very many places. So the amount of proposal, dollar amount that was submitted is about $234 million for last year. I believe we are exceeding that mainly because of some of the new positions that we have as a result of the Comer funding. This is our funded proposals. Most of these are either industry or federal government. So just to provide a context, there is 3 areas where we are focused for our research. There is federal funding organizations, there is industry, and then there is large-scale prototype-level systems integration proposals. We do well with the first 2. The third one, where really distinguishes R1, Research 1 institutions from R2 institutions, are the largest scale proposal development and execution. So in the field of medicine, that would be hospital. For a place like us, is larger scale organizations like the manufacturing initiative that we are supporting. Great examples of that would be Georgia Tech Research Institute and Georgia Tech, Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Caltech, Livermore Laboratories and University of California system, and MITRE and MIT. So the major element of large-scale funding for research comes from committed, dedicated scientific staff that do not share their time with academic obligations, but yet they do first-class research. I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are going with this large-scale manufacturing, which we call systems integration and prototype development facilities. No funding organization is going to give you $50 million grants if the PIs also have to go and run a laboratory on the campus. They are looking for dedicated staff that can execute the milestones and timelines. Okay, just to give you a sense of where we are. But this slide is particularly important for us because it shows the slice of research that we do that is funded by industry. Majority of them industry in the state of Missouri, of course. Now, that is what I mean when I say we do solution-inspired, application-driven research rather than hypothesis-driven research. We are not looking for the shiny object, if you will. We are trying to answer an existing question. So just to give you a sense of comparison, we are on the bottom left-hand corner of these slides, and the darkest slice of the pie is what the research with industry is, and you can compare ours with some of the peer universities that we compare ourselves with. Okay, so it should give you a sense of the types of research that an institute of technology like us does. Keith?
Those universities that you've chosen to compare yourself with.
That's right. These are what we call our peer universities. Not our aspirational universities, but our peer universities.
Based on their the number of students or?
Dollar of research. Dollar of research. For this purpose, for the purpose of research.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see, for example, Colorado School of Mines is a comparison for us. New Jersey Institute of Technology is a comparison for us. This highlights really the top level peer review research that we do. This is DOE, National Science Foundation, Department of Transportation, Department of Defense. So the types of places that we go for our research proposals. And as I said, we have a real rigorous process of reviewing our proposals before we submit it because we want to actually have a higher rate of success. Our issue really, to be frank, is not getting our proposals funded, is having more faculty that submit proposals. Okay, and that's an issue, and that's one of the challenges that we are faced, and I'll talk to you about the view of it. We do very well with highly recognized proposals. In this case, this is National Science Foundation Career Awards. You see that, for example, last year we submitted 16, and we were funded 3 of them. That's 18%. The year before was a little less. But you get a sense, this year we're submitting 22 career awards. So we are upping, there is a whole mechanism that we established for eligible faculty members. These are faculty members fewer than 5 years as a professor since their PhD. They must be assistant professors, and they can only apply 3 times. So there is a limited population that can apply for these proposals. These are the 3 faculty members that just this last year won their career awards. And we just learned that 2 of our faculty members have won the Young Presidential Investigator Awards. Then one is from the Air Force Research Laboratory, Professor Frank Hahn, and he's terrific. By the way, he was listed as University of Missouri Young Investigator Award. So he got chalked up on your list, but he's really an S&T.
All part of the system.
Exactly. There's only 30 of these awards a year, and so we have one. And then This morning, I learned about another one from U.S. Department of Agriculture, of all the places, a faculty member from us who won the Young Investigator Award research grant. Now, this is a busy slide, but let me tell you what we mean by everything that's on that slide as a sense of, future directions. Comer enabled really a lot of activities on our campus. What you see here is not only Comer. We've had many other donations and, as you saw, funded proposals. But we are slated to hire 100 innovation and entrepreneurship doctoral fellowship, 100 fully supported PhD students, and if we do it right, we will use these positions as incentives for research active faculty members, so they will take 2 years of these funds, and then they will write proposals to get the other 2 years funds. So this could be as many as 200, 300, 400 on a steady state PhD supported. That's a lot, folks, for a school our size. And these are fully supported: tuition, stipend, fringe benefits, and overhead, all fully supported. We are hiring 22, actually, 2 additional endowment funds came from other donors, 22 endowed chairs and professors. Okay, now we just got the Comer Board approval for us to fund the base salary for these folks as well. Not only the endowment amount, you see, you have to have the line to hire a faculty member before you can endow them. But because we are limited enrollment to faculty ratio, we just got approval from the board to hire these faculty members and also pay their base salary for a few years on a bridging process to hire 20 endowed chairs and professors. That is also huge impact on our research. Then, of course, the big next initiative for us is really the manufacturing initiative. So we went to the Comer Board and we said, you want us to hire 100 endowed, PhD fellows. You want us to hire 22 endowed professors and chairs. Where are we going to put them? They said, here's $50 million. Build the Protoplex building. Go get another $50 million. We are in a tight space situation, as I've explained it to President Choi. We are holding some of our proposals for manufacturing because if they get funded, we don't know where to put them. For one of our large Army proposals, $18 million proposals that we received funding for, we have resorted to leasing an MFA building and renovating it so we can put our foundry for lightweight, high-strength steel manufacturing. I just want to give you a sense of when we say priority for us, how we choose those priorities. And all of this has been done in really a systematic, strategic approach where we had the strategic planning and focus and all of that. I tell you, you see a bullet in there that says IGI. That's Ignition Grant Initiative. So the Comer Board approved $1 million for us to give $50,000 on promising large-scale proposal ideas. Teams will propose that we want to develop a proposal in this area. The $50,000 is not for them to do research with, but it is for them to build their teams, to hold mini symposia, to go visit the funding program directors, and as a result, bring in large-scale funding into the campus, just to give you a sense of everything that's going on. Now, we have challenges, as you see, and we have proposed actions. For every line of actions that you see on the right-hand side, we have a detailed plan with detailed, project plans, milestones, and timelines to achieve. I just took those slides out for the interest of time, but for every line of action, there is an action plan for us achieving it. All of this is as a part of what we call a VSE, vision, strategic focus, and execution priority. We have one of these slides, one-page strategic plan. Of course, there is a major planning process behind this, but for everybody to understand where we are going, we reduce our strategic plan in every one of our areas into a one-pager. And it's the vision, which is a 5-year thing, a strategic focus, which is a 2 to 3 year process, and then execution priorities, which is just 1 to 2 years. So you'll see for our strategic, the vision is expressed there. This is now just for manufacturing, the research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And we have 7 strategic directions and 17 action plans. Every one of the strategic directions has an owner. There is a reporting process every quarter on where we are going with this. So everything that I showed you earlier comes from a strategic sense of direction for our research. As you know, our goal of North Star for research is for us to move up to R1 from R2 where we are. And I have no doubt that given the boost that we received from the Comer, many other donations, and our proposals, we are well on our way to get there. We just don't want to limit ourselves because of, frankly, situations like a space need. And, I cannot ask for a donor to give us any more than $50 million towards a $100 million project. I think you would agree that that's a generous offer. I'll give you $50 million, go raise the other $50 million. If manufacturing is important to the state, they better step in. And that's where this whole initiative of manufacturing for us is critical. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Chancellor Degani?
I do. A couple slides back, you had the pie charts, and it was about your peer groups and the percentages of funding. What do you want that to look like with your aspirational peers? You're obviously achieving more industry than your peer group, but what does that look like in that group?
So let me clarify something. The percentage of total funding that comes from industry will not probably increase if you go to even aspirational universities. Okay? What we want is increase the size of the pie, so we'll be in R1, but we are happy with about a third of our money coming from industry.
Okay. So the federal is what you're hoping to grow, but you think your industry is, you've captured what your opportunity is?
Well, we are hoping to grow the federal and grow the industry, but we are hoping to maintain the ratio. I'll be honest. We don't want to become a job shop. Okay? So we don't want to do any industry research. It has to be researchy projects. It has to support PhD research, and that's the carefulness that we have to have with projects with industry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I add a comment?
Go ahead, Dr. Troy.
So you've had a great success over the years in attracting career awardees and also having your faculty members win these very prestigious awards.
Yep.
And as you know, once they are awarded, then they become targets to be recruited by other universities. And so the need to have appropriate laboratory space for these individuals is going to be critically important. So I
Very
just wanted to
good
make
point.
that comment.
Very good, President Choi. As you know, we have been targeted already. My comment is we don't have to always be victims. We're going to go hunt as well, frankly. but we can only succeed if we have the types of facilities and programs to be able to attract them. I mean, we are hiring 4 Commerce Center directors. We are in final processes of hiring 2. One is coming to us from a very large-scale university in Arizona and is only coming because of our manufacturing initiatives and so on and so forth. So you're absolutely right.
Any further questions for Chancellor Degani? Well, Kristen.
Thank you.
Kristen and Mo, we really appreciate your commitment to research, and thank you so much for your presentation. Okay, now the board has an action item for a resolution regarding COVID-19 government contractor protocols for university employees. Moon, I will turn it over to you to present this item.
Thank you. Can I ask you to put the presentation on, the PowerPoint? All right, thank you. Next slide, please. Recently, about a little over a month ago, President Biden issued an executive order, 14042, that required those that work on federal contracts to be vaccinated. And the way that the employees are defined is shown in those 3 categories. Those that work directly on those federal government contracts, as well as individuals that support those that work on the contracts, and also more broadly, those who come into interaction with those that either work directly or support those contracts. Many universities around the country have determined that the only way to comply with this very broad rule is to have all employees that work at the university to follow this mandate. So this is the issue of the Executive Order 14042. Next slide, please. So as a matter of fact, throughout all 4 universities, the Extension and MU Healthcare, we have hundreds of millions of dollars in federal research and other contracts and grants. And some of these projects are critically important, whether it is MU Healthcare physicians treating veterans at the Veterans Hospital as specialists, to radioisotope productions. We produce 14,500 doses of the key ingredients that go into cancer medicine each week to treat patients throughout the Western Hemisphere. And as you saw earlier from Tony Caruso's work, as well as Professor O'Malley's work at S&T, we do critically important national security and defense research. Now, there are some legal challenges to President Biden's order, and there was a letter signed by 21 AGs, including Missouri's AG, Eric Schmidt, objecting to the broad reach of Executive Order 14042 because it leaves little choice but for organizations to comply by having the entire workforce be vaccinated. Attorney General Schmidt also leads a group of 10 AGs that are in opposition to this particular executive order. And the federal guidance and the timelines have been changing, and perhaps further changes will come. But in many ways, we do feel compelled, next slide please, compelled to comply with this executive order. And so what I am recommending to the board for its consideration is to adopt a resolution that allows us to require vaccinations for those employees that fall into those categories, but keeping in mind that we have the religious and medical exemptions that were clearly identified by Governor Parsons' Executive Order 2110 for those that have medical and religious objection. So the mandate will apply to all faculty, staff, and student employees who do not have an exemption. And over the next few weeks, we are going to be developing the policies that will be vetted with input from the board that will determine how employees can get medical, religious exemptions, as well as the conditions in which they can be certified to not have any contact with those that either work on or support federal contracts. So right now, the deadline for meeting the federal vaccine mandate guideline is January 18th, but for the first of those shots to be taken, I believe it's Johnson & Johnson, by January 4th. And that the UN president will work with constituent members from public health, medical experts, and with input and insight from the board on policies that will be developed to implement this vaccine mandate. So, Chair Chapman?
Yes, are there any questions regarding Moon's presentation of the federal vaccine mandate?
I have more of a comment. Moon, I am in support of.
Curator Holbrook?
Moon, I am in support of passing this resolution, but I do it with reservation. I know that you and I and many of your staff have had long conversations about isolating employees and what can go on, and I know that I have some experience in government contracting, and I'm glad to see that you've hired Al Craisman's firm to advise you relative to your rights under government contracts. I think that was a very good decision made. But I still want to encourage the university, under your provision of isolation, university-determined lack of interaction, that if we have to move, if we can move some people around to reach this lack of interaction, and I understand there's a cost associated with that, and I understand we may be able to get reimbursed for those costs if we make a claim. I want to strongly encourage the university at all different levels to make those accommodations as much as you can. I get it, we can't accommodate everybody. I fully understand that. But when I just step back and I look at things in general, if I just look at, take your athletic department or one of the athletic departments, or even Mizzou's athletic department, it would seem to me that it would be very simple to segregate that group if possible. I know we talked about people in residential halls and about they may be an employee in interaction. We may need to move some people around, put them in a different hall. I'm not suggesting we take a job away from anybody, but I am suggesting there are things we can do, and I fully understand that there are costs associated with that. But I also fully understand that the federal government, under the contract provisions and your right to an equitable adjustment, that you can file a claim for reimbursement of those costs. And so I don't want cost to get in the way of dealing with the people that we don't have to force them to get a vaccination.
So, thank you. We would take that absolutely under consideration. But with the three exemption categories, I believe that we will be able to meet most of the needs of those that may not want to get vaccinated. But in addition to that, where we can, segregate those employees to minimize their contacts with the employees in the first two categories, we will do that. But in some cases, it's not only cost, but the timing. So I'll give you an example. If we have faculty members that use a critical microbiology core on a federal contract, but we have non-federal contractors working on in the same facility, yes, we can duplicate that core facility, but the time that it would take to duplicate it would be on the order of about a year or more. And so that cuts back on our ability to continue with that research project. But where we can, I'm going to challenge our team to make that possible, where we can segregate.
Thank you very much.
Can we go back one slide? Doesn't it say that or two
Can you go
slides
back?
maybe, that who work directly on government contracts even if they work remotely? So you're saying move people around, but they're saying we don't care if they work remotely. So how does that?
From my understanding, I think that particular case, that is specifically spelled out in the executive order. But if there are those staff members that do work remotely, not on a federal contract, but they're not going to be in contact. I mean, I'm just going to take an example. Let's say there's an extension worker out in the Boot Heel, and that person's work is not supported by a federal contract and doesn't support anyone that works in the federal contract, there may be some opportunities to segregate that person without requiring them to get vaccinated.
Any further questions?
Clarification, we're monitoring the lawsuit, I assume, the Attorney General's lawsuit?
Yes, we are.
And this no longer applies, this resolution no longer applies
So,
if
yes.
Missouri prevails?
That's right. If you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Think, how about next slide? Yes, I started off with the first one that's there. And in many ways, we feel compelled to comply with this. The board voted back in, I don't recall, was it October?
September.
September, not to have a vaccine mandate, but this issue is only brought up because of the executive order, the federal executive order.
Curator Graves, I think the second to last paragraph, or next to last paragraph of the resolution covers the situation you were talking about.
Yeah, there were two, so I wasn't able to compare them, two resolutions, but I believe that's in there. In my packet, there were two.
Again, I want to go back and talk about an issue relative to the executive order. The executive order is very, very vague on individuals that work in connection with. Well, let's just take it. Is the guy cutting the grass on the football field or around, let's just say the guy cutting the grass at a research station, is that connected to well, it could be connected to federal research, but here's my point. Is the guy cleaning the dormitory, cleaning the bathrooms in a dormitory connected to the research? One could argue yes, one could argue no.
And those are the policy discussions that we're going to have, and then that'll be discussed with the members of the board, how we come up with those conditions that satisfy whether the person can be determined not to have a connection to the federal research.
I'd like to push that issue.
Noted, yes.
Can we also clarify, because our resolution in September, I think it gets shortchanged saying that we voted against a vaccine mandate. We voted against a vaccine mandate unless federal or state law changed or compelled us to do. And I think sometimes that's getting misreported, and we even shortchange it amongst ourselves.
Okay, good point, good point.
Great comments. Any further comments or questions regarding the?
Yeah, I just have one comment. I'm not going to vote against this because I think it's important. I'm not going to vote for it either, but I think it's important. I understand why we're doing it. It's important for the university. I would never want to do anything that would impair the university. I think it's a gross overreach of the authority of the Office of the President. And I'm not going to help him with it, but I also am not going to hurt the university. So that's my position.
The President of the United States.
Yeah.
Not me.
I mean, there's two.
No, we're in charge of gross overreach here.
Okay, I guess, right.
And Todd, will you go ahead and reaffirm that we all believe that, you know, if you want to get vaccinated, you should, so that it's not reported that we said, oh, you people shouldn't get vaccinated?
Remember
that
I think it's everyone's choice.
Yeah.
And if the vaccine works, then people ought to be happy with it.
Any further comments or questions?
I would just compliment the university. I think this is such a complicated issue, and you all have spent a lot of time trying to take in all of our respective feedback, dissect it, and find a path forward. I think we all understand we want to live only by our principles, but this actually becomes a practical matter at this point for the health of the university.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? All right. Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second from the board to approve the resolution found in your materials regarding COVID-19 government contractor protocols as in your materials and presented here today?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, do we have any abstentions?
Abstention.
Okay. Sydney, do we need a roll call since we had a name? Yes, please call the roll.
Curator Bernsick? Yes. Curator Chapman?
Yes.
Curator Graham?
Yes.
Curator Graves?
Abstain.
Curator Hobrock?
Yes.
Curator Holloway,
Yes.
Curator Lehman,
No.
Curator Winokur,
Yes.
Curator Williams.
Yes.
Okay. You have 7 votes in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Okay, the motion passes. I'll also read from the resolution here, and I quote, "Now therefore be it resolved that the university will comply with the federal mandate and the governor's executive order as follows. All university employees will comply with the vaccine and masking requirements of the federal mandate, but they will not be compelled to comply or penalized for not complying with the federal mandate if they demonstrate, 1, a sincerely held religious belief, 2, medical reasons, or 3, based on the nature of their work location, or lack of interactions with covered employees, the university determines that the federal mandate does not apply to them. The university will not require employees to comply with the federal mandate in the event that withdrawal, modification, injunction, or invalidation of the federal mandate makes it inapplicable to them in whole or in part. The president of the university may issue appropriate policies to carry out the terms and intent of this resolution after giving adequate notice to the board for review and comment." All right. The next item of business is to elect the board chair and vice chair for next year. We'll take up election of the chair first. Are there any nominations for the board chair in 2022?
I have that motion. Chair Chapman, it's my distinct honor and personal privilege to nominate you, Curator Darrell Chapman, to serve as chairperson for the University of Missouri Board of Curators for the coming year. Last year at this time, Curator Marcy Graham brilliantly shared Chair Chapman's career and personal story. I would like to focus on his board leadership this past year as I nominate him to a second term as our board chair. Darrell's service this year has been a lesson in both participative and transformative leadership styles. He is steadfast and measured, focused and transparent. He puts a high value on building quality relationships, and it shows. Chair Chapman has asked each of us as he started his term what our goals were for the board and the university. He brought those various opinions together and created a roadmap for the year. This was seen in our strategic conversations held at each board meeting, as well as his chair reports. Through board engagement and communication, he encouraged and empowered the board and staff to work together to delve into a host of opportunities and topics this year: research, student success, board governance, and strategic decision-making, to name a few. He was a board member and now a chair who is known for his in-depth study of the issues. His thorough preparation leads to an ability to see multiple points of view. He expertly engages each board member, encouraging each person to speak on the different matters at hand. Darrell has a quiet grace that allows him to lean into uncomfortable discussions and effectively lead the board through robust conversation, as seen throughout the year and certainly earlier today. Additionally, Chair Chapman not only values the opinions of his colleagues, but he considers it essential to inquire and to listen to different points of view to inform his own decision. And most notably, he does not offer his point of view until others have had the chance to weigh in. As Curator Graham noted in his remarks last year, Chair Chapman is often the first to praise others, is often the first to praise others, and this is even more evident in his role as chair. He is quick to show appreciation for the different people who interact with the board: a dean, a student, a faculty member, or a member of the staff. He values the thousands of employees who deliver the university's mission each day, as well as the students that we serve, as shown by his request that at each meeting, the board interacts with students at that university. Chair Chapman has served with distinction since his appointment as a board member, committee chair, vice chair, and more recently, chair of the board itself. I make this nomination because Chair Chapman has been an illustrious leader for our board. He has been a leader for the entire board, all 9 board members plus our student representative. Chair Chapman has been a steady hand as we've begun to emerge from the impacts of COVID and have looked into the future, mindful of both the opportunities and challenges that lay ahead for the University of Missouri system. The opportunity to have Curator Darrell Chapman serve another term of chair is in the best interest of this board and the university system. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Robin. I really appreciate that very much. Do we have a second?
I would be honored to second that, Mr. Chair. I think Robin pretty much covered it very well, but we've served 5 years together, and I really appreciate and respect everything you do.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes.
Yay.
Can I add a comment?
Oh, thank you. Yes, ma'am, please.
So, Curator Chapman, I want to say that you set very high standards and set of expectations for all of us. And you also asked us to be accountable to the students, faculty, and staff, and also, very importantly, to Missouri citizens. And we had a very successful year navigating so many challenges. So I want to thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Moon. I really appreciate that. Well, I got a few words to say. I will keep it short. I'll go up to the podium, but
If you go up there, we're asking questions.
You can do that.
Fire away, fire away. All right, thank you, Robin, for the nomination and the board for your trust in me. I'm truly honored to serve my fellow board members, our students and faculty, each campus, and the great state of Missouri as your board chair. I also want to acknowledge the leadership and passion of our president, Dr. Moon Choi. Moon has been the right leader at the right time for the UM system, and we are very happy to have him. Moon, we look forward to many more years working with you at our great institution. I also want to thank Steve, Cindy, Valerie, and Phyllis for their support, patience, and guidance. We appreciate all you do for the board and the UM system. It is truly a team effort. Curator Holbrook, thank you for all you have done to support me and the board this past year. You have been a great partner and have provided transparency and communication to our fellow board members. You are a hard worker and a great role model for me as I continuously work to improve. Last year, we had many great moments and accomplishments, including bringing people back to campus safely amidst a pandemic, emphasizing research and teaching excellence, and improving student success and outreach on all 4 campuses. We also opened the Blunt Next Gen Teaching and Research Facility. We hired a new athletic director at Mizzou, and we have broken ground, or we will break ground, on a new indoor facility for our football team. We also gained a better understanding of the board's role in governance of the UM system. We also addressed important issues on Mizzou's campus, such as making sure that our history as a university and its connection with historical figures such as Thomas Jefferson remain intact, while at the same time respecting and hearing other individuals' viewpoints. We have a lot more work to do, but I am proud of all that we have accomplished together in 2021. I'd like to thank my wife, Jenny, for her love and support and for taking such good care of our children, Manny, Darla, and Daryl III. God has truly blessed me with an incredible and wonderful family. Last year, I shared with you my father's story as a source of inspiration for me personally. My dad was truly a great guy. He overcame adversity and some personal failures, as we all have, but remained an optimist about life and sacrificed so much to provide me with opportunities to be successful and to provide me with opportunities that he never had. His optimism always gave me the energy to try again when I failed at something and to continue to always pursue my dreams. One of those dreams, although unrealized at that time, was being here in this role serving as your board chair. Thank you all for making this dream come true. I shared my story last year about my life as a son, a student athlete, and as a proud Mizzou alumni. That story revealed the fundamental truth that your initial circumstances in life will not determine who you are or who you can become, as long as you maintain your faith, surround yourself with people that love and care for you, and continue to dream of what is possible in this great country. I was also touched by people's reaction to that message. Several people reached out to me to share stories of loved ones who inspired them, just like my dad did for me. I heard stories about moms, dads, spouses, grandparents, and friends who have been inspirational figures and fought through cancer, poverty, the Great Depression, the Civil Rights Movement, and so on. It was truly touching to have this connection with so many people with stories of loved ones who will never be forgotten. It was also a reminder that we will make it through any adversity that we face today as we reflected on how those inspirational figures bravely overcame similar obstacles in their time. Each story that I heard had a tremendous impact on me. I was able to find common ground and make new connections with people young and old, men and women, black and white, liberal and conservative, at a time where our country has been divided on so many issues. I was able to find another source of inspiration in 2021. My mom and I decided to visit my little sister Kara's gravesite this year for the first time together. Kara died at the age of 2 from sickle cell anemia. I talked about this last year. She was just a baby. It was simply too painful for my mom to visit that site on a regular basis since Kara's passing in 1979 until we went together in 2021. Kara was a beautiful child with a whole life ahead of her, and she bravely fought a disease until the very end. We visited the gravesite a few times after that with my wife and 3 children. We cleaned up the gravesite and left flowers the last time that we were there in September. My mom shared stories about Kara, showed us pictures of her smiling and happy as a baby, and told us how hard she fought the disease that eventually took her life. Kara is another source of inspiration for me. She was not given the opportunities that we all have in life, but she lived the best life that she could. I swore to make my life as meaningful as possible in honor of Kara and to be brave in the face of adversity, just like she was. Finding this common ground and connecting with so many people is something I will continue to strive for in my personal and professional life. Thank you to all who reached out to share your personal stories of inspiration. To my fellow board members, as your chair, I will continue to try to find the common ground that connects us, and we will do our best to inspire others as we do our jobs serving the citizens of Missouri. Thank you again for this opportunity to serve our great institution.
Pleasure to serve with you, my friend.
Let me just go shake the hand. Okay, to our next item of business, we will take up the election of vice chair. Are there any nominations for the board vice chair for 2022?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it would be my pleasure to nominate Curator Holbrook to serve as your vice chair. And I will tell you that I'm about to cry after that speech, but I'm like, there is zero chance that I can top either one of those speeches. So what I'm going to tell you is that, one, Curator Holbrook, I apologize because I'm not going to be as pointed as they are, but I think that goes to the point is that Daryl is a great chair because he has so much great support. And I think the one thing that we know about Curator Holbrook is he's going to hold each of us accountable. He will test you. He will ask you as many questions as possibly can to get to the point, but he will also listen to Daryl, listen to the chair, advise the chair, and then be his biggest supporter once the decision is made. And there is nothing more that you can ask in a vice chair than to be your biggest supporter, but to also be your voice of reason. And I see that when you two work together. I see that when I work with him, and I value the fact that he is going to challenge us to be fiscally responsible, to be socially responsible, and to make sure we're making the decisions for the right reason. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, you're always going to leave there feeling like you were challenged. And so that is the reason. I think Julia's going to be next.
Even when you agree with him.
And so that's why it is my honor to nominate Curator Holbrook to serve as vice chair.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Curator Holbrook, would you like to say a few words?
No, sir, I have nothing prepared, so no, thank you.
All right. Well, Greg,
I'm speechless for a change.
I will. Well, I will say this, Greg, thank you for all of your work. Thank you for the time commitment. Greg and I met at Jimmy John's, I keep telling this story, last year. And we just talked about goals and things we were gonna do and try to do together. And I couldn't have asked for a better teammate, Greg. And we really appreciate all that you do, the experience that you bring, your ability to dig in on things and ask the right questions. So we really appreciate all that you do for us.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
All right.
Can I add one?
Yes.
So just one comment. Working with Curator Holbrook, one thing that I learned is you never have to guess what his positions are. But more seriously, the relentless drive that he has to challenge us to find the resources, become more efficient so we can reallocate those resources to support the mission of the university has been so helpful for all of us. So thank you.
All right. Are there any other items for the good and welfare of the board? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion and a second from the board to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Cindy, please call the roll.
Curator Burnsick,
Yes.
Curator Chapman,
Yes.
Curator Graham,
Yes.
Curator Graves,
Yes.
Curator Holbrook,
Yes.
Curator Holloway,
Yes.
Curator Lehman,
Yes.
Curator Winokur,
Yes.
Curator Williams.
Yes.
All votes in favor.
Okay, the motion carries. This concludes the public portion of the board meeting today. The board thanks everyone for their reports, and it's great seeing everyone here in person. Thank you, Chancellor Sobolik, for hosting our meeting. We really appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.